You just got scammed. Every single time you bought a car, you got scammed. And the proof is sitting in a showroom 10,000 miles away for a third of the price. $25,000. That's the number that's about to make you sick. Because on the other side of the planet, that buys a supercar killer. Here, it buys hand crank windows, 2 seats, and a phone mount where the navigation screen should be. No stereo, no AC that actually works in a heat wave. That's not a car. That's a punishment for being broke. And the most insulting part is you don't even get to choose the better one. They've already decided for you. $50,000. That's the average new car price in America in 2026. For cloth seats, for a screen smaller than your phone, for an infotainment system that lags when you plug in Apple CarPlay. Go back to 2019, and cars under 25 grand made up over 20% of the market. Today, that number has crashed to under 5%. The cheap car didn't evolve, it didn't get better, it just vanished. And nobody seems to care except the people who actually have to pay for this stuff. Think about what $25,000 bought you in 2019, a brand new Civic, a loaded Corolla, a decent family sedan with power windows and cruise control, and a stereo that didn't make you want to cry. Today, that same 25 grand gets you nothing, almost literally nothing. There is no new car at that price point worth owning, so where did all the cheap cars go? They didn't disappear, they just moved. They moved to China, and they got upgraded. Dramatically. While you were busy paying 50 grand for cloth seats, the rest of the world was building cars that make your dealership lot look like a museum of mediocrity. I know what you're thinking. Cheap Chinese junk. That used to be true. Used to be. Then Wolfgang Egger, the guy who designed the Audi R8 and the Lamborghini Urus, started designing their cars. The same guy who made you drool over German metal is now drawing Chinese sedans. The era of Chinese cars are garbage died about 3 years ago. It just took the rest of the world a while to notice. And now that the tariffs and the laws and the bans are piling up, you have to wonder. What exactly are they so afraid of? Because the cars I'm about to show you aren't just competitive. They're so good that the United States government is passing laws to keep them out of your driveway. Not tariffs, bans, permanent, unappealable, no loophole bans. That's not competition, that's fear. And once you see what they're afraid of, you're going to be furious. Let's start with a car that's supposed to be a winner. On paper, it's the most beautiful car on this list. It's called the Geely Galaxy E8. And if you looked at the spec sheet blind, you'd guess this thing costs $80,000. 45-inch 8K screen that stretches from door to door across the dashboard. That's not a display. That's an IMAX theater bolted to your steering wheel. And in America, a screen half that size costs you an extra $5,000 as a premium package. Here, it's just included, 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. 800-volt architecture that charges from 10 to 80% in 10.5 minutes. That's faster than you can finish a coffee and check your email, 0.199 drag coefficient. For context, that's better than a Porsche Taycan, better than a Lamborghini. This car slips through air like a knife through warm butter, and the top spec costs under $30,000. $30,000. In America, that gets you a base model, Civic with floor mats listed as an optional extra. But here's the part that'll mess with your head. This car is a total failure in China. A complete, undeniable, catastrophic flop. In January 2026, they sold 139 units, February 120, March 161. That's not a sales chart, that's a death spiral. Year over year, sales dropped 92%. To put that in perspective, that's like the Toyota Camry suddenly selling fewer cars than a local food truck. How does a car with this much tech and this much style sell this badly? Because it's stuck in the dead zone. Look down market in China and you've got the BYD Chin Plus and the Deepal SL03 for $12,000 to $15,000. Cars that are cheaper, perfectly adequate, and eat up the volume. Look upmarket and you've got the BYD Han EV and the Xiaopeng P7i for around $20,000, cars that have established reputations, killer brand equity, and genuinely class-leading tech. The Galaxy E8 sits right in the middle. It's not cheap enough to be a value king, and it's not premium enough to be a status symbol. It's the automotive equivalent of a mid-tier chain restaurant. The food fine is fine, the service is adequate, but nobody's telling their friends about it. And the problems go deeper. Owners have been complaining that the smart driving features are nerfed. The base model only gets basic lane keeping. The highway NOAA system that they promised doesn't work. Maps haven't been updated in months. The system false brakes on the highway, scaring the living daylights out of drivers. There are 32 complaints on the Chinese version of the NHETSAA website, and over 40% of them are about the self-driving system malfunctioning. So even though the screen is breathtaking and the acceleration is blistering, the execution just isn't there. This car is a cautionary tale. It proves you can't just throw hardware at a problem and call it a day. But here's the crazy part. Even in total failure, the Galaxy E8 is a better car than most things on American lots today. Even when Chinese automakers screw up, they're still building something that would embarrass half the American lineup. So why does a car this good sell like garbage? I'm not telling you. Drop your guess below. Because the next car on this list is cheaper, faster, and about to make you actually angry. Now we're at number 4. And number 4 is where things get genuinely offensive. This is the BYD Seagull, $10,000. Let me say that again. $10,000. That's less than a set of high-end alloy wheels on a Porsche. That's less than the markup on a loaded F-150. And here's what that 10 grand buys you. A brand new, factory-fresh electric car with a blade battery that is so safe and so integrated into the chassis that it actually increases structural rigidity. A heat pump, which in America is still a luxury item reserved for BMWs and Mercedes. 6 airbags, which is more than some entry-level cars in the US offer. And if you're willing to spend a tiny bit more, it buys you a laser radar unit, an actual functioning LiDAR system that can detect objects up to 350 meters away. We're talking about a car that costs less than a used Nissan Versa, and it has autonomous driving hardware that was considered cutting-edge on $100,000 cars just 3 years ago. The CityFOS system can handle traffic lights, read real-time signal timers, navigate complex intersections, merge onto highways, and tackle everything from wide boulevards to narrow alleyways. The interior gets a 12.8-inch floating pad with Dylink 150 software. The safety structure is built on a dedicated EV platform with high-strength steel. This isn't a golf cart. This is a real car that does real car things. And now for the part that should make you sick. American's startup Slate Auto is trying to build a $25,000 electric pickup. To hit that price, they're stripping out absolutely everything. 2 seats, you can't take your family. Hand crank windows, no AC that works in a heat wave, no stereo system, no navigation. They're literally putting a phone mount on the dashboard and calling it a multimedia system. This is what think you deserve for 25 grand, a work vehicle with no AC and a phone mount. Meanwhile, in China, 10 grand buys you a car that parks itself. $25,000, 2 seats, hand crank windows, and they expect you to be grateful. Are you grateful? Comments. The BYD Seagull costs 10, has laser radar, power everything, and enough tech to drive itself through downtown Shanghai. And I want to be really clear about what I'm saying here. $10,000 in China gets you a car with more advanced driver assistance than a Tesla Model Y. $25,000 in America gets you a glorified golf cart with a phone holder. The American consumer is getting absolutely hosed. And the worst part is they don't even know it. They don't know because they don't have a choice. Walk into any American dealership right now. Just try it. Find a new car under $25,000. I'll wait. There's nothing. The cheapest new cars on the lot are stripped-down econoboxes with manual transmissions, no backup camera, and windows you have to roll down by hand. And they're all priced at or above $25,000. Meanwhile, the average transaction price for a new car in America just hit $50,000. That's not inflation. That's price gouging dressed up in a suit. The automakers know you don't have options. The dealers know you don't have options. The government knows you don't have options. They all know, and they're all perfectly happy to keep it that way. The Seagull, if you tried to import it to the US, the tariffs alone would push the price to almost $17,000 before shipping and dealer fees. $17,000 for a car that's worth $10,000. That's a 70% markup just for the privilege of buying it. And even at $17,000, it would still undercut everything on the market. It would still be the best value proposition in the history of the American auto industry. But you can't have it, because the government decided you don't deserve it. And if that doesn't get under your skin, wait until you hear about number 3. Number 3 is the NIO Firefly, and the Firefly is the car that breaks my heart the most, because it's the one that feels the most human. Starting price, about $16,000. That puts it in the premium subcompact segment. But don't let the size fool you. This thing is loaded with personality. It has a 92-liter frunk. That's a front trunk. And it comes with a drain plug. Let me pause there. A drain plug in the front trunk. You can literally fill it with ice and use it as a cooler at a tailgate. You can wash it out with a hose. That kind of detail tells you everything you need to know about how these companies are thinking about cars. They're not just building transportation. They're building lifestyle products that people actually enjoy owning. The Firefly does 420 kilometers on a charge, which is about 260 miles. It's got 9 airbags, which is more than a Volvo. It has rear-wheel drive, which is fun, and it leverages NIO's existing sales and service network, so owners get access to battery swap stations and premium customer support. In the Chinese market, this car absolutely crushed it. In March 2026 alone, they delivered 6,119 units. That's a 130% increase month over month. In less than a year on the market, they crossed 50,000 cumulative sales. For a premium subcompact EV, that's unheard of. It's the fastest car in its class to hit that milestone. This thing is a hit by every measurable metric. So when NIO took it to Europe, they were thinking big. They had a great product, a great brand, and momentum. Germany alone should have been thousands. They registered 15 cars in the first half of 2026. That's not a ratio, that's a disaster. Average monthly sales in Europe for the Firefly are below 300 units. The European market, which was supposed to be their big expansion target, is barely moving the needle. And it's not because the car is bad. It's because of the politics. The EU imposed punitive tariffs on Chinese EVs, and suddenly, that $16,000 car is priced out of the market. It's not competitive anymore. So NIO's founder, William Li, basically threw his hands up and said, "We're not pulling out of overseas markets, but we're slowing down dramatically. We're going to focus on China, and we'll use local partners if we have to." Here's the brutal reality that nobody in the American auto industry wants to admit. NIO has a fantastic car. It's well-built, well-designed, and well-supported. It's beating expectations in China. And in Europe, it's a ghost. Not because of quality, not because of price, because of paperwork, because of trade barriers, because of political fear. And if a company with NIO's resources and NIO's product can't crack the export code, what chance does anyone else have? Think about that. Think about what it takes to build a car, sell it in your home market, and then try to sell it overseas. The tariff wall is just the first obstacle. Then comes certification, then comes dealer networks, then comes brand recognition, then comes consumer trust. Then comes the endless cycle of compliance and legal fees. By the time a Chinese EV actually reaches a European showroom, it's been marked up so many times that the price advantage has completely evaporated. That's not a free market. That's a protection racket. 50,000 in China, 15 in Germany. How does that happen? It's not the car, it's the politics. And this is where the fairy tale ends. Because even with an amazing product, even with domestic dominance, the Firefly shows that exporting is a grind. It's a war of attrition. You need capital, you need patience, and you need governments to play nice. Right now, nobody's playing nice. So what chance does anyone else have? Comments. Because the next car on this list is going to make you even angrier. Now we're at number 2, and number 2 is the one that automotive nerds have been losing their minds over for years. This is the BYD Seal. Not the old one. The '08. The flagship sedan that just dropped in July 2026. And if you've been paying attention to the car world at all, you already know the name. Wolfgang Egger designed this thing. The same guy who made the Audi R8 a legend and the Lamborghini Urus a monster. So yes, it looks absolutely stunning. The drag coefficient is 0.2119. For comparison, a Porsche Taycan is 0.22. This is better than a Porsche. The top spec does 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. It's built on the E-Platform 3.0 Evo architecture, which is BYD's latest and greatest. The top-spec pure EV version has a CLTC range of 905 kilometers. That's over 560 miles. Yes, you read that right. Over 500 miles of range. But that's not the headline. The headline is the suspension. The Seal '08 comes with Yunnan A intelligent air suspension. That's active air suspension with continuous damping control. In America, air suspension is still a $50,000 plus luxury option. Here, it's standard on the flagship. It also comes with rear axle steering, which tightens the turning radius at low speeds and stabilizes the car at high speeds. That's a feature you usually only find on high-end German sedans that cost more than most people's annual salary. The battery tech is BYD's latest flash charging system. The Smart Driving Suite is the full God's Eye package. The car is over 5.1 meters long and has a wheelbase over 3 meters. It's huge, it's fast, it's luxurious, and the top spec in China costs 239,000 yuan, which is about 33,000 US dollars. 33,000. Now watch what happens when that same car crosses the ocean. In the UK, the 2026 BYD Seal was just priced at £45,730. That's about 42 zeros US dollars. In China, the starting price is the equivalent of about 17,800 US dollars. Same car, identical vehicle. 17,000 in China, 42,000 in the UK. Same factory, same parts. $25,000 more for paperwork and shipping. And shipping doesn't cost $25,000. Let's be real. A significant chunk of that difference is pure profit margin and import duties designed specifically to kill competitiveness. And even at $42,000 in the UK, the Seal is still a Tesla Model 3 killer. It's still cheaper, more luxurious, and arguably better driving. In America, we don't even get the choice. We don't get to see it. We don't get to test drive it. We don't get to decide if it's worth the money. The government decided for us. That is the definition of a rigged market. So the only thing that makes this car worth $42,000 is paperwork, shipping, and politics. Not a single extra bolt, not one. Does that sound like fair trade to you? Because it doesn't to me. And here's the part that really stings. BYD isn't some fly-by-night operation. They've produced over 17 million vehicles. 17 million. That's not a startup. That's a global automotive giant that just happens to be headquartered in Shenzhen instead of Detroit. And their production capacity, their supply chain integration, their vertical manufacturing strategy, it's all built to do one thing: drive costs down, not by cutting corners, by being smarter, by owning the entire production chain, from the raw materials to the finished car. They don't pay middlemen. They don't outsource core components. They build everything in-house. Batteries, chips, software, motors, electronics. It's all theirs. And that integration gives them a cost advantage that American companies simply cannot match. Not because American engineers are dumber, they're not. Because American companies are addicted to the supplier model. They buy batteries from one supplier, chips from another, software from a third. Every layer adds cost. Every layer adds complexity. BYD cut out the middleman entirely, and the savings they pass it straight to the consumer. That's why a car with air suspension, rear axle steering, and 560 miles of range costs $33,000. Because they built the whole damn thing from the ground up. And now we're at number 1. The absolute king. The car that shattered every record and made every other car on this list look like a footnote. That's the Xiaopeng MONA M03. This car is a statistical anomaly. It's a physics-defying, market-dominating monster, 0.194 drag coefficient. For comparison, a Tesla Model 3 is high 3. A Porsche Taycan is 0.22. This is lower than both. It's the lowest of any production electric hatchback in the history of the world. Lowest ever. Next spec. The top spec comes with 2 of Xiaopeng's self-developed Turing AI chips, delivering a combined 2,500 tera operations per second of compute power. Tesla Model Y has 720. This has more than double, 1,500 tops, in a car that costs $21,000. The base price is about $15,000. The fully loaded ultra-spec version is just over 21, and the software that runs on all that compute is built on a full VLA architecture, a vision language action model designed for Level 4 autonomous driving. That's not a driver assistance package. That's a robotaxi brain in a family hatchback. In April 2026, the updated MONA M03 launched and sold over 10,000 units in 37 minutes. 37 minutes. The Max version, which has the full self-driving hardware, accounted for 85% of those orders. People aren't buying the cheap version. They're buying the expensive, fully loaded, brain-in-a-box version because they trust the tech. As of July 2026, cumulative deliveries crossed 280,000 units. This car has been the #1 selling EV sedan in the $10,000 to $20,000 price segment for 22 consecutive months. That's nearly 2 years of absolute dominance. In April and May of 2026, the MONA M03 outsold every single gasoline sedan in China. Not just EVs, all sedans, gasoline, hybrid, everything. It became the single most popular sedan in the entire country, regardless of powertrain. In 2025, its market share in the A-segment EV market was larger than the combined sales of the 2nd through 5th best-selling cars. It wasn't winning, it was lapping the competition. And here's what makes that even more insane. Xiaopeng did this without a gas option, without a hybrid fallback, without dealer subsidies, without government handouts. They just built a better car, priced it lower, and let the market decide. And the market chose them, over and over and over again, 22 months in a row. If this were happening in America, we'd be calling it a monopoly. We'd be launching antitrust investigations. We'd be demanding answers. In China, they call it Tuesday. So why isn't this car in America? Why isn't it in Europe? Why is the world's most dominant sedan trapped in one country like a geological fossil? Because Xiaopeng has no confirmed export plans for the MONA M03. Not yet. No export plans, no warranty, no parts support, no software updates, no over-the-air fixes. If you want one in the US, you have to buy it through a gray market importer. You're on your own. No export plans, no official word, nothing. So how does the world's best-selling sedan stay a China-only secret? I'll let you figure that out while I show you the law that makes sure you never get one. Drop your answer in the comments. Because the legal wall we're about to talk about is even dumber than you think. Now let's zoom out and talk about the wall. Because everything I just described, every single car on this list, is effectively banned from the American market. Not just tariffed, not just taxed. Legally, permanently, categorically banned. The current tariff structure alone is insane. The U.S. applies a 25% tariff under Section 232 on all imported vehicles. On top of that, the Section 301 tariff adds 100% specifically on Chinese EVs. Then there's the baseline MFN tariff. Stack them all together, and the effective tax rate on a Chinese EV can exceed 245%. That's not a tariff. That's a death sentence. A $10,000 Seagull becomes a $34,000 car before it even leaves the port. It's priced out of existence, but the tariffs are just the appetizer. The main course is a new law called the Connected Vehicle Security Act, S.4429, which passed the Senate Commerce Committee in July 2026. This isn't about price, this is about existence. 2027, software banned. That means no Chinese apps, no Chinese maps, no Chinese code. 2030, hardware banned. That means no Chinese chips, no Chinese screens, no Chinese batteries. 15% ownership cap. If a Chinese entity owns more than 15% of a car manufacturer, that manufacturer is banned from selling anything in the US. Mercedes is already at 20%. They might be out too. This is so broad that it could actually affect a German luxury brand with a Chinese minority shareholder. And who's behind this? Lobbyists. Specifically, US automakers who are terrified of competition. They wrote the rules. They got the bill drafted. They're using national security as a fig leaf to crush innovation from overseas. Software ban, hardware ban, ownership cap. They're not leaving a single loophole. Who do you think wrote this law? Not the consumers. That's for sure, and the insanity doesn't stop at imports. The proposed bill would even block Canadians and Mexicans from driving Chinese EVs into the US temporarily for vacation or business. Imagine driving from Vancouver to Seattle in your perfectly legal Chinese EV and getting turned away at the border because the car you bought in your home country isn't allowed to touch American asphalt. That's the level of paranoia we're talking about. Meanwhile, the UK imported 12% of its new cars from Chinese factories last year. In December, that hit 20%. The EU is at 6% and climbing. The rest of the developed world is integrating Chinese EVs into their markets. China is now the world's largest exporter of automobiles. They passed Japan 2 years ago. They're not slowing down. BYD alone has produced over 17 million vehicles cumulatively. Xiaopeng is shipping massive volumes every month. NIO is refining its battery swap tech. Geely is building the future of automotive software. The rest of the world is moving forward, and the United States is building a fortress. But fortresses don't stop innovation. They just protect the mediocre. And that's the twist that nobody wants to talk about. American automakers are genuinely terrified. Not because the Chinese are stealing their secrets, but because the Chinese have already invented the future and they're selling it for a fraction of the cost. The average American car buyer pays 50 grand and gets a cloth interior with a tiny screen. The average Chinese car buyer pays 20 grand and gets air suspension, laser radar, and 500 miles of range. That's not competition. That's a massacre. And the only way American automakers can survive is to erect a legal wall so high that consumers can't even see what they're missing. But here's the problem with walls. You can't unsee what you've seen. Now you know about the Seagull, You know about the Seal, you know about the MONA. You know exactly how badly you're being ripped off every time you walk onto a dealer lot. And that knowledge is corrosive. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you walked onto a car lot and actually felt excited? Not anxious, not stressed, not resigned, actually excited. For most Americans, that feeling is gone. It's been replaced by a low-grade dread. You know you're going to overpay. You know the financing is going to be predatory. You know the dealer is going to tack on $1,000 in market adjustments just because they can. You know all of this going in, and you go in anyway because you have no choice. You need a car to get to work. You need a car to pick up your kids. You need a car to live your life. And the system knows that. The system exploits that. The system is built on that. And the Chinese cars I just showed you are the antidote to that system. They're the proof that it doesn't have to be this way. That cars can be affordable. That cars can be fun. That cars can be full of technology without being full of debt. That's what they're really afraid of. Not the cars themselves. The idea behind the cars. The idea that the American consumer might finally wake up and realize they've been getting robbed for decades. That's the real threat. So let me end with this. 40% of Americans surveyed in March 2026 said they would support Chinese automakers entering the U.S. market. 40%. That's not a fringe minority. That's almost half the country. In a country where Buy American is practically a religion, 40% are so fed up with car prices that they'd buy from a country we're supposedly in a trade war with. That's desperation. They know they're getting hosed. They just can't do anything about it. The U.S. government is effectively protecting automakers who can't compete, and in the process, they're punishing consumers who can't afford to overpay. The global automotive industry is shifting eastward, whether we like it or not. The factories are there, the innovation is there, the talent is there. The only thing missing is the political will to admit that maybe, just maybe, the Chinese built a better car for less money. And that's not a national security threat. That's just competition. But here's the part that should make you furious. Every time you fill up your gas tank or plug in your EV and watch the miles tick by too slowly, you're not just paying for gas or electricity. You're paying a tax on protectionism, a tax on fear, a tax on the refusal to compete, and the person who gets hurt the most isn't some politician in Washington. It's you. It's your wallet. It's your commute. It's your road trip. It's the safety of your family and the features you could have had. You'll never get to drive a MONA M03. You'll never get to park a BYD Seal in your garage. You'll never get to show your friends the front drain plug on the Firefly. And it's not because they're bad cars. It's because the law says you don't deserve them. But here's the thing about laws. They can change. They do change. And when they do, it's not the politicians who make the decision. It's the people who get angry enough to demand something better. It's the people who stop accepting the mediocre and start asking why. It's the people who watch videos like this and realize the game is rigged. That's who changes the laws. Not lobbyists, not automakers. The people. And if 40% of Americans already want Chinese cars on our lots, that number is only going to grow. Because every month that passes, the price gap gets wider, American cars get more expensive, and Chinese cars get better. Every month that passes, more people realize they're being scammed. That momentum is unstoppable. The wall might hold for a year. It might hold for 5 years, but it can't hold forever. Because walls are built by humans. And humans are bad at building things that last. So the next time you're shopping for a car, and the dealer says this one is $45,000 and the financing is 6%, and the payment is more than your rent, don't just accept it. Remember this video. Remember the $10,000 car with laser radar. Remember the $20,000 car that beats a Porsche. Remember that the rest of the world lives in a different reality, and this reality is designed to keep you poor and compliant. And now that you know, you can't unknow, so do something with that anger. Share this video, argue in the comments, prove that you care. Because the only way the market changes is if consumers stop accepting the mediocre. The only way. The wall comes down is if we all start pushing. One question. If that Seagull was sitting in your local dealer for 10 grand, would you buy it? Yes or no? Comments. Now, because we both know the answer. Your local dealer, 50,000 for a base model. A showroom in Shanghai, 10,000 for a car that parks itself. Who's winning? Comments. The numbers don't lie, and neither do I. See you in the comments.